Good morning, everyone. Jim Clarke here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplative focus with you today. So we missed a couple of Tuesday or Monday mornings, good old winter weather and other extenuating circumstances, but we've managed to resolve all of those. So today I want to share the following contemplation with you. Do nothing and witness the origin of your creation. Sit where your commentary and judgment cannot go. A life devoted to meditation opens the door to stillness and disempowers illusion. So that's the contemplation that I based this little presentation on, and it's one of many that we've used here over the years, where we do live a life that's devoted to meditation and a holistic lifestyle. And the outcome, of course, is greater and greater experiences uh, of stillness, of expanded awareness, of insights and accessing more and more of the truth, which simply means the ground of being that we are in relation to the illusion of the human experience that we believe we are to be, and we're limited to that experience without having more balance in ourselves. So meditation over the years develops a balance, and by balance we simply mean that the negative polarity, the contractive polarity that allows us to have form, to have the human experience, is dominant by default. And unless we address that consciously, unless we create more and more of the positive polarity, which is numinal, which is space, which is stillness, and non-form, then accessing that part of ourselves that goes beyond the physical simply is not possible, except for maybe by an odd chance here and there. So, in the journey of meditation, which is not something in this context that is for the faint-hearted, because it's a journey that's very demanding, and many challenges have to be met along the way, and they're all related to our identification with ourselves as the human beings that we are playing here and now. So me, Jim Clarke, as a meditator, what I experience in my journey with this is that here and there, in the beginning years of my meditation practice, I would have breakthrough moments where something would come up visually and experientially to validate that there was more to me and more to my life than I'd ever could possibly comprehend with the thinking mind. It was just way too much, but it was always very expansive and very delightful, very blissful experience. So both I touched upon the nature of my being, and that's the bliss. I touched upon more of who I am, which is going beyond the physical and beyond form. And in these moments, there was validation that the meditation practice was doing what it was supposed to do. But in the early years before I was here at Synchronicity, before I had a mentor, before I had someone who could explain any of this, I didn't really know exactly what was going on in any definitive terms. I read a lot of books back in that day because there was no internet to access in those days. And most of the information that had to do with meditation was written in the East, and their languaging and their metaphors were drawn from a culture and a time vastly different than what we live in here today in the West. So there was a lot of interpretation that I had to do, and it still left me questioning my own interpretation, of course, of what they were actually saying. So there was an unknown factor, and I remember very clearly that at one point in my meditation practice, I actually had validation that it was working more than I ever dreamed of, but in that experience there was a lot of upheaval, which is simply the data that's incongruent with the experiences you have when you meditate. You touch upon something that's beyond the physical and beyond form, that is you, and yet you don't have the understanding that that is you. And all the data that you have, all the beliefs that you hold in your subconscious and unconscious mind about who you are and what life is, comes to the surface to be released. Which is a good sign. This means it's working. This means that you are progressing in evolving yourself back to yourself before you even took this birth. And that is really the ultimate goal of meditation for spiritual reasons. So, in this, I, of course, was not consistent in my meditation practice because sometimes the catharsis that I and emotional and mental upheavals that I experienced, even though it was a good thing, I didn't see it that way. And at one point, I simply had to stop to integrate my experience. And that lasted for many years, actually. And then when I was ready, meditation began again. And that's when I came here to, it was just prior to coming back to synchronicity. I discovered synchronicity at that point in my life. And the meditation technology that synchronicity uses. And once I had a taste of that, I knew that I found something that I wanted to work with, because it was so much more efficient, so much more easy to attain these different states of being using synchronicity meditation technology, which we call high-tech meditation. So I did this for many years. I moved here and became a staff member. So my challenges increased, of course, because I was I shifted from a context outside in the world where I still had some of the comforts and whatnot that my ego liked to have, and moved into a community of meditators where we're all going through this kind of experience, which was, of course, validation that whatever was going on here, it was certainly working quite well. And we were all having breakthrough experiences and whatnot, but we also had to process that experience and integrate that experience. And part of that integrative process involves witnessing. It involves being able to pull back and watch your experience rather than react to your experience, which does come in time. Today, that's something that I experience every moment of every day. I'm watching myself watch myself, and whatever's going on around me. If I'm in activity, then the activity is something I witness. If I'm very still and meditating, that's what I watch, and that's all there is to it. The truth about meditation in regards to stillness and so forth is that it's so simple that we really have a hard time seeing what it is that we're doing or what's happening with us when we get into a meditative state. I should say it that way because it's not something the ego can really do. I mean, you practice by doing, you begin by doing, and you have phenomenal experiences that validate that your efforts are working, which is what I had, many visions and so forth and so on. But as you progress, you go beyond what the ego can access, beyond what the ego can do. The ego allows you to have the human experience, and the human experience allows you to evolve beyond the human experience into the spiritual being that you truly are. And to be able to recognize that, be able to disassociate your limited identification with being a flesh and blood human being and all those limitations that come with that, the fear-based lifestyle that is generated when you're a separate individual among billions of other individuals, competing for survival. And when you get to that state, when you start to experience with some consistency the ground of being of who you are, then that validation is a constant in your life. And as that evolves, your identification naturally moves towards that because it has more power. It's a It's a very blissful experience. It's calming, and it is a point of stillness that is present with you 24/7 eventually. So that's what this contemplation I share today is pointing to. Sit where commentary and judgment cannot go, and that is stillness, where you are simply witnessing the consciousness that you are. And everything outside yourself, everything inside yourself, the macrocosm and the microcosm, it's all the same consciousness. So, what's to judge? What's to worry about? The illusion of life, the illusion of death as a human being dissipates into the realization that life never really ends. The body comes, the body goes. Forms come and forms go. But what is living never ceases to live, and that is consciousness itself. And that is the truth of who you are and what life is. Now, what consciousness is not something that I care to debate about or go into intellectually, because when you meditate and when you experience what that is, then there's meaning. There's meaning for you that cannot be it cannot be gotten simply by intellectualizing. You have to bring yourself into a state of stillness through meditation. You have to live a lifestyle that helps to support that experience, which is one that accentuates physical health, it accentuates positive emotional experiences, and it accentuates a positive mental experience. So instead of drowning yourself in negative, contracting information on a daily basis unconsciously, you consciously maintain a focus that keeps you uplifted and helps to validate the experiences you're having in your meditation, rather than having a moment here and there and then going back to a life that is contradictory to what you experience in meditation. You get on board with where you're going and your identification as a human being, which is fine. It doesn't have to go anywhere, but you go beyond that. So you can include that, but you're not limited by that. And that's the point where eventually, if you maintain a daily meditation focus, if you maintain your intention to evolve yourself to that point in your own experience, it will happen. It's just a question of seeing it through. And when the challenges come, when there's upheaval, if there's moments where your mind is just running all kinds of negativity because it's coming out with all the stuff that's incongruent with what you experience in your meditation, that's fine. And when you understand that, and when you know how to integrate that experience, then it doesn't blow you out of the water. It doesn't shut you off from meditation, because you recognize that that's actually a validation of your practice. And you're going so far into the truth of yourself that the mental concepts that used to be your version of what was real are being flushed out to so that what is real, what is beyond the mind, can exist in your experience without contradiction and without friction. And that's a process that's different for every individual, so there's no way to say how long that will take for somebody. Some people might have a full-on realization very quickly. Some people might take years. But the thing is that no matter what you do in this life, what can you take with you when your life comes to an end? And if you evolve yourself to a state of awareness where you are identified with the consciousness that you are, well, that's the only thing that you're going to experience after you're through with this life. So that's the only thing you can take with you. And that, to me, is an investment that is well worth your time and your effort. It's been my experience here, and it's become my life. It's something I never dreamed I would ever stay so long in one place and do one thing all my life, but this is what's happened because with the realization and the consequent love-based experience that I have moment to moment, I, I, I simply wouldn't want to do anything else. So I sit where my judgments and my thinking and all the noise that can and conflict that can be generated by the mind simply can't go because there's something else happening in my being that is much more powerful than the thoughts themselves. And that is what I wanted to share with you today so that you might sit where your judgments and your thinking and the noise and the negativity and the fear cannot go. So that's what I'm going to leave you with now. And I hope this little presentation here has been of some use to you, or some helps to stimulate you in your practice, or to get you to start a practice, whatever. So anyway, I wish you well, and I hope to see you on the other side as the blissful being that you are. Thank you.